Great Scott! 2 Back to the Future games?
That's heavy.
Thank you for joining us today at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. 35 years ago, the movie Back to the Future hit the screens, and now we have 2 cooperative dice games based off of those movies, and we're going to compare both of these games in today's video.
So, Funko Games has published Back to the Future Back in Time, and Ravensburger has published Back to the Future Dice Through Time.
Let's look at Back to the Future Back in Time first.
Back to the Future Back in Time focuses on the first movie with the McFly picture slowly fading in 1955. Players will need to help George and Lorraine fall in love, take out Biff, and make that DeLorean reach 88 miles per hour to send Marty back to 1985 when lightning hits the clock tower at 10:04 p.m.
Players take on the roles of one of the iconic characters who each have special abilities.
On your turn, you activate power tiles to move or roll dice in order to complete challenges, like trying to move the love meter up for George and Lorraine, knocking down Biff, moving the DeLorean, or meeting requirements on cards.
That's easier said than done because at the beginning of each player's turn, the turn tracker board tells you to do things like place out trouble cards, move characters, or even make the photo fade.
Players win if the love meter is in the heart zone and the completed DeLorean is in the right zone of the street when the time tracker reaches the end, which is 10:04 p.m.
But players immediately lose the game if the 6th part of the photo is placed face down. Alright, let's look real quick at Back to the Future Dice Through Time, and then we'll compare them.
This one covers all 3 movies. The premise is that key items from the trilogy are scattered throughout different times and locations, and you have to get those items back to the right times and locations.
At the beginning of each round, events are placed out on the board, then all players roll their set of dice.
Players take turns using their dice to move to different locations to complete these events. If a space is cleared, then you'll be able to pick up an item in that year that you'll have to deliver to the location and year indicated on the card.
The players win if they can return all the items to the right spots before the game is over.
But the game is immediately over if the out-of-time tracker reaches 12. It moves when you have unresolved events left on the board.
Alright, let's compare them. These are both cooperative dice games based off of Back to the Future, but they're 2 totally different games.
Now, I would say that the Ravensburger game is more of a pick up and deliver style of mechanic, whereas the Funko Games one has a variety of objectives that you're trying to juggle.
The themes come through strong in both of them, but I would say the Back to the Future Back in Time is just a little bit more thematic. You're trying to get George and Lorraine to fall in love and stop that picture from fading, which is basically right out of that first movie.
Now, I do like in the Ravensburger one, Dice Through Time, that you get to see some of the locations throughout these centuries. You see like the clock tower as it's being built, and then throughout time. Also, you have all those items that you're trying to return, and those can bring back some really strong memories from the movies, those iconic moments.
The art for both of these games is good. Both have a comic book feel to them. Funko has the Tales from Space for the rulebook, miniatures for the characters, the clock tower as the dice tower, and a pretty rad looking DeLorean. Ravensburger has some great color choices for each time period. Each player gets their own DeLorean and a handy player aid right on their player board.
Both games give you ways to use your dice to help other players, so it really does feel like you're working together. But in both games, all of the information is open, so there is the chance that some players, like Kevin, might try to quarterback and tell other players what to do on their turns.
I like the Ravensburger one that it has different difficulty levels. Basically, you're just adding more items to the years to make it harder. But the Back to the Future Back in Time, it basically has one difficulty level, super hard.
And that's mainly because of the Biff symbols on the dice. When you roll Biff icons, first it locks those dice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Biff starts moving towards George and Lorraine and can really wreck that love meter.
And every die has 2 Biff symbols, which means you're rolling a lot of Biffs, and in my opinion, too many Biffs.
Now, there are some ways to mitigate this. There's a tile that will let you re-roll Biffs. But I agree that I think the game might have been better if each die only had 1 Biff symbol on it, or if each player already started with that Biff reroll tile.
You basically have to have someone in the game, in your group, that is basically their sole goal is to keep knocking down Biff. And for me, that could get a little repetitive.
And now, also to do well, you need to focus on completing those trouble cards because they'll give you extra action tiles or items that give you benefits and abilities. And I do like that aspect of the game, being able to build up your character, but it is tempting to go too much after those to the detriment of the main objectives.
I like the covers for both games. The insert in Dice Through Time is way better and has a place for everything. I personally like Back to the Future Dice Through Time more. It has those varying difficulty levels. I like the pick up and deliver aspect, and it has delivering those cool items to the right locations, like the hoverboard, the sports almanac, and Marty's guitar.
Now, I agree with you, Kevin. I think I like Dice Through Time a little bit better, even though I do think Back in Time has some really interesting things going on in the game. For me, it ultimately comes down to the type of randomness in the game. In Dice Through Time, you roll your dice first, and then you plan out your actions. And I do like having that control.
Yeah.
In Back in Time, you decide what you want to do. I'm going to try this action, and then you roll your dice to see what happens. And sometimes that works out, and sometimes you end up with a fistful of Biffs.
So if you could choose just one, I think we would recommend Back to the Future Dice Through Time from Ravensburger.
Now, if you've played both of these games, tell us which one you like better.
And if you like these types of videos where we're comparing 2 games, let us know that in the comments as well. Hit the like button for this video, and we would love for you to subscribe to our channel.
Each player already started with that Biff reroll tile.
You basically.
That's okay, I want trial.
Alright, let's try it again.
Build up your character, but... now I remember what I was going to say. Sorry.
Let's redo it again.
Tempting to spend too much time on it.
Tempted.
I was on a roll.
You were rolling somewhere.